Now, I would like to invite Dr. Mashelkar ji for his keynote address on a topic that just makes perfect sense for this event, building New India as an exponential inspiration.
आदरणीय व्यासपीठ आणि आपण सर्व गर्जे मराठीचे कुटुंबीय, we are all one family. While I was sitting there, I was just thinking, I was born on 1st January 1943. So I calculated, and it turns out to be 29,408th day of my life today. So this is the 29,408th morning of my life. माझ्या आयुष्यातली सकाळ आहे. मला जर कोणी विचारलं, व्हॉट इज द मोस्ट मेमोरेबल, सर्वात संस्मरणीय अशी सकाळ तुझ्या आयुष्यातली कुठली, तर मी म्हणेन आजची. आणि त्याची अनेक कारणं आहेत. मी आपल्याला माझ्या भाषणामध्ये ते सर्व सांगणार आहे. पण ही सकाळ घडवण्यात आनंद, तुम्ही, सुनीता, संदीप, माधव आणि आपली सारी GMGT टीम, या सर्वांनी आपण ही घडवून आणलेली आहे. म्हणून माझ्याकडे शब्द नाही आहेत आपले कसे आभार मानावे. As you go, you add years to your life, but there are mornings when you add life to your years. I would like to thank you very much. गडकरी साहेबांचं फार सुंदर भाषण झालं, अत्यंत प्रेरणादायी होतं ते. आणि मराठी माणूस काय आहे, महाराष्ट्र कुठे जाईल याविषयीचं त्याचं स्वप्न, त्याचं मला प्रचंड आदर आहे त्यांच्याविषयी. आणि सर्व ते म्हणाले ते मला खरंच पटलं. आपण पाहिलं की गर्जे मराठीचा आता 7 वर्षाचा प्रवास झालेला आहे. आणि मला फार आनंद आहे आणि अभिमान आहे की या प्रवासात मी सुरुवातीपासून आपल्याबरोबर आहे. आणि आपण जे पुस्तक पाहिलं तर ज्ञानाधिष्ठित प्रगती आणि सरस्वतीच्या उपासनेद्वारे प्रतिष्ठा जगभर मिळवणारी अशी आपली जी मराठी मंडळी आहे, असे प्रतिभावंतांच्या यश ग्रंथाचंच आपण एक दर्शन घडवणारा हा ग्रंथ तुम्ही जेव्हा हे केलं त्याचा मला आठवतं प्रिफेससुद्धा मीच लिहिला होता आणि चीफ गेस्ट पण मीच होतो त्यावेळी. तिथून आमचं हे आहे. आणि ह्याच्यामध्ये मला आठवतं की आमचे संबंध वाढत गेले आणि आम्ही एक कुटुंबीय होतो. आणि मला सर्वात आठवण होते ती म्हणजे माझा 80वा वाढदिवस जेव्हा झाला तेव्हा आपण एकंदर किती जण आला होता त्यावेळी, एकंदर हो अशी मंडळी सर्व येऊन माझा वाढदिवस आपण साजरा केला होता खरं. तेव्हा आपले हे संबंध हे प्रेमाचे संबंध आहेत. आणि म्हणून मला आज फार बरं वाटतं आहे. महाराष्ट्र ही माझी कर्मभूमी आहे. जे काही मी आज आहे ते महाराष्ट्रामुळे आहे. मला आठवतं की एक 100 वर्षापूर्वी 1920चं जे दशक होतं त्यावेळी आपल्याला स्वातंत्र्य मिळालं नव्हतं. आणि आठवतं मला टिळक, आगरकर, गोखले, रानडे, ज्योतिबा फुले यांनी एक वैचारिक नेतृत्व आपण ज्याला म्हणतो, थॉट लिडरशिप, ही त्यावेळी देशाला दिली होती. आणि 100 वर्षानंतर ही पाळी आलेली आहे, आता ही संधी आलेली आहे जेव्हा आपण असं नेतृत्व देऊ शकू. They were not great thought leaders, but it's not just that we want to give thought leadership, we want to give action leadership. That's very, very important. आणि ती कशी देता येईल याविषयीचे माझे काही विचार आहेत ते मी आपल्यासमोर मांडून इच्छितो. आता मी सायंटिस्ट आहे म्हटल्यावर आपण म्हणणार की बहुतेक तुम्ही इक्वेशनने सुरुवात करणार. I won't disappoint you. We'll start with an equation. So once there was a discussion. I'll mix Marathi and English if you like. काही भाग इंग्लिशमध्ये चांगले होतात आणि काही मराठीमध्ये येतात. So pardon me. So एक बैठक शास्त्रज्ञांची झाली होती and they were discussing what is the most powerful equation that scientists have ever developed. So somebody got up and said Newton's second law, F equal to ma. टेस्ट पण करतोय म्हणून आठवतं की नाही शाळेत तुम्हाला फोर्स इक्वल टू मास इंटू ॲक्सिलरेशन नाही का. नंतर दुसरा म्हणा नाही ते नाही. इट इज E इक्वल टू आइन्स्टीन, E इक्वल टू MC स्क्वेअर. बरोबर अगदी सर्वांना येतं बघा. तर कोणीतरी माझ्याकडे आलं म्हणाल अरे तू काय बोलत नाही आहेस, तुझ्यामध्ये सर्वात मोठं इक्वेशन काय. तर म्हटलं नीदर न्यूटन नॉर आइन्स्टीन. नॉट न्यूटन नॉर आइन्स्टीन नो. म्हटलं द मोस्ट पॉवरफुल इक्वेशन विच विल लास्ट फॉर एव्हर इज E इक्वल टू F. तर ते म्हणाले व्हॉट इज E, व्हॉट इज दॅट. I said E is education and F is future. Education is future. And also, if you are a good scientist, you have to not only propose an equation, you have to prove the equation. Huh? So I'll prove it. The fact that I'm standing before you is the proof of E equal to F. And that's a कारण सांगतो मी तुम्हाला. My mind goes back to 17 March 2000. राष्ट्रपती भवन कळलं. आणि त्या ठिकाणी that was the day when Padma awards were being given. Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibushan. And K.R. Narayanan, the then president, gave Padma awards. And that day, 2 people got Padma Bhushan. One after the other. One was Ratan Tata and second one myself. Now you say, how does that prove E equal to F? So I'll tell you how it proves E equal to F. K.R. Narayanan, the president, was born in a very poor family. He used to walk a few kilometers to the school. His parents were so poor that they could not afford the tuition fee. So he would stand outside the class and take notes. Okay? I was also born in a very poor family, in a village called Mashelkar. My father died when I was 6. My mother could barely read, could barely write. She never went to school. And she took me and came to Mumbai. Did any work that came to her hand so that we could have 2 meals a day. There are days when I was hungry. She was an expert biotechnologist, food technologist. She would she would sometimes cook where you didn't feel hungry at night. And you want to put this? I remember walking barefoot until I was 12. I had my first chappals when I was 12. I studied under street lights. They were very tough days. In SSC, Secondary School Certificate Exam, I stood 11th among 135,000 students in Maharashtra. And still I was going to leave education because I could see my struggling mother. And then a miracle happened, just as it happened in K.R. Narayan's case. K.R. Narayan, while we were growing similarly, he got a Tata scholarship. While I was growing similarly, I also got a Tata scholarship. And the interesting part is that we grew to becoming whatever we were because of that Tata scholarship of 60 rupees per month. Alright. Now the interesting part on that day, 17 March, was that a Tata scholar, K.R. Narayan, gave Padma to Ratan Tata and to another Tata scholar. That was me. So it actually proved that education is equal to future, and that is where we have to invest. But am I right? As a scientist, I like to be precise. Does mere education build your future? No. There has to be an opportunity. Actually, it is the correct equation is education into opportunity is equal to future. If you don't get that opportunity, you can't build your future. There have been instances in India where PhDs and BTechs and engineers have applied for a lower division clerk position in railways. That's not education building your future. So opportunities are very important. Now coming to opportunity, I remember I've been the president of National Innovation Foundation. National Innovation Foundation deals with grassroots innovation. Because when we talk about innovation, we think about laboratories and so on and so forth. No. Everyone is someone. Margins on the mind are not marginal minds. Everybody can think and create. I've been the president for chairman for 18 years. And I remember we were interviewing, and the position was for the Chief Innovation Officer of National Innovation Foundation. And I was looking at a CV of an individual, and it said he was expert in branding. So I said, that's great. Can you brand my India for me? And so of course he was puzzled because he had branded a refrigerator, he had branded a car. How do you brand a nation? So I said, United States of America brands itself as a land of opportunity. How do you brand India? Pat came the answer. India is a land of ideas. Now, India is a land of idea and the US is the land of opportunity. And all of you actually prove that US is a land of opportunity. The heights to which you have risen, it's incredible. I was talking to people yesterday night and kept on feeling very, very proud of what you have been able to sort of achieve. The challenge now is how do we make India as a land of opportunity. All right, that is our big challenge. So when I talk about building new India as an exponential inspirator, that's what I'm looking at. How do we go there, and how do we go there quickly? Speed matters, scale matters, sustainability matters, and how do we do that? So let me begin with a little story of what I like to call as story of lilies in the pond. There is this very interesting pond which has lilies which have an interesting habit. They double up every day. So on day 2 they are twice of day 1 and so on. Now here is the puzzle. If the pond is full on the 38th day, on what day will it be half full? 29th, right? On 28th it will be quarter, right? 27th it will be 1/8, and 26th it will be 1/16. So if you go to that pond on the 26th day, 6% is full, 94% is empty. So you would give sort of, oh my God, this is an empty pond, nothing can happen here. And yet you go there after 4 days and you find that the pond is full. India is releasing the pond on the 26th day. Just go there after 4 days. Now again, as a scientist, you say you have to prove. Well, so if you just look back at the history, 1750, we are quarter of world's GDP, right? Quarter. What happened in 1991? We are going to falter on balance of payments, and we pawned our gold. And in 2023 today, we have 600 billion reserve, foreign exchange reserve. So somehow or the other we are up there, we took a dip there, and we are rising. But are we rising too slow? That's the question we have to ask. If you just see India GDP, it took 67 years for the first $1 trillion economy. The next trillion came in 8 years, and the following trillion came in 3 years. But we took 67 years. Pratap, I remember in 2007, we celebrated 60 years of India's independence. I celebrated 16 years of India's independence. First freedom, political freedom came in 1947, but the economic freedom, liberalization, opening up happened in 1990. So did we take too long? Answer is yes. But we don't have to. We don't have to. People call me a dangerous optimist, so you have to be careful, sort of trusting me when I talk about something. But just see, for example, IT services, and many of you are there. It took 30 years to build the first $100 billion. Next 10 years, $200 billion. And within the next 3 years, 300 billion. So every 100, if you can see, you went from 30 years to 10 years to 3 years. All right? That is the exponential that one is talking about. And that is inspiring. All of you have made it sort of happen. You look at enterprises. I've been a member of the board of Reliance. It's a great company, and it really represents exponential inspiration. If you see, it took 15 years to build $1 billion company, but in the next 15 years, they did not double up. They went tenfold. All right? So from 1 billion, they went to 10 billion. In the next 5 years, they did not double up. They went tenfold, 100 billion. And within the next 3 years, they are 250 billion, close to 300 billion now, and soon they will be $500 billion. All right, so you can quite clearly see this is the exponential that we talk about a nation, about service, about a sector, and so on and so forth. So this is sort of something that, as an Indian, makes me very proud. But these are numbers. But Pratap, there are instances in life when you feel proud to be an Indian. I remember Cambridge University, there was this Judge Business School, and they had invited me to give the first BP innovation lecture. There was a new series they were starting. And on the same day, Ratan Tata got an honorary doctorate from Cambridge University. And in his honor, there was a dinner that was held. The president of Royal Society, so many people were there. And I remember at that time, the director of Cavendish Laboratory was sitting on my right. And during dinner, he said, "Look at that man." And he was pointing towards Ratan Tata. Do you realize that he's the man who is providing the highest number of jobs in manufacturing in UK? And India. You can see how proud I must have felt. Britain, who ruled over us for so many years, actually an Indian providing the highest number of jobs. So when we talk about our growth, there is a sense of pride, there is a sense of achievement, all right? And it has taken a lot of hard work to do it. Let's deep dive into the essence of this growth. United States of America, this country, you know, its growth initial was because of roads and railways. And you can see, I mean, it's amazing when you come here. UK, it was textiles. Sweden, it was timber and timber products. Denmark, it was milk and milk products. For Middle East, it was oil. And if you ask me, what is the oil for India? It is the Indian talent. In fact, I remember Atalji used to say IT, India's future is in IT as in information technology. I also used to say India's future is in IT, but IT as in Indian talent. Right? And that's something which is very important. And I don't have to prove that. I think you yourself are the proof, so as to say. I'm a traveling salesman for India, in a way. So I was giving a talk in the G20 meeting that took place. I was giving the valedictory, and I told them about Indian talent, same equation. I keep on repeating, good things have to be repeated, so I repeat. And then I told them about the top 10 CEOs of Indian origin, and I said the top two, Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai for Microsoft and Alphabet, their market cap is 2.5 trillion and 1.5 trillion, together 4 trillion, just two Indians heading 4 trillion market cap companies, which is more than India's GDP. What I would love to see, by the way, because I saw the list, I really like a Marathi Manus to be in that top 2, 3, 4, and it is possible. Aspirations are our possibilities, basically. This entire meeting is an aspiration. I don't want this to be an event. I want this to be a movement. All right? And it will happen. It will happen. We'll meet 10 years from now here. I'm 81, but I'll be there. Don't worry. I will say. I think we have to keep that. Now, I just wanted to talk about the theme on the exponential part. And how do you make it happen? Now, there are two books. The first is the one that each one of you have. That is Exprovement. Exponential improvement. And there's a bit of oxymoron there because it says exponential improvement through converging parallels. Now, parallel lines never meet, do they? So if you make them meet, what can happen? So I want each one of you to read it, so I will not sort of explain that. But mark the word experiment, exponential. I love that word. Before that, in 2019, we wrote a book, Ravi Pandit and myself. It is called Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting. म्हणजे बेडूक उडीते हनुमान उडी. But the most important part is what Nitin Gadkari was talking about. The subtitle of this is Creating the Magic of Radical Yet Sustainable Transformation. You remember what he said? Rapid socio-economic transformation. That is what I am talking about. And how do you do that? Actually, that's the book about. But this is again an exponential, setting tall benchmarks. They would say, how do you think of that idea? So I'll tell you what it was. You know, I've been chairman of Reliance Innovation Council, and we had Nobel laureate like Job Maryland, Nobel laureate like Bob Grubbs from Caltech. I don't know whether Deepa is there, but C.K. Prahlad was a member, and he really gave us some transformative ideas, as a matter of fact. Bill Hasseltine was there, George Whiteside from Harvard. You know, Brother Brah, we always talk about Saraswati and Lakshmi. आपण सरस्वतीची पूजा वेगळी करतो, लक्ष्मीची वेगळी करतो. But this country, this nation, this region, this Silicon Valley found the way from Saraswati to Lakshmi. If you see. Now, among academics, for example, George Whiteside from Harvard, who was a member of our, he had the highest citation index, as it is called, which is the quality of research. Normally, if you are 20, 30, 40, you are lucky. He was 200, so as to say, the highest. And yet the market cap of his companies was $30 billion. Saraswati and Lakshmi, So these are sort of the people we had. And then one day, Mukesh and I always used to talk. I've been there on the board for 17 years. So every board meeting, either before or after, we used to talk and dream. Nothing to do with the board. And then something he was explaining, he said, "Doc, we must leapfrog." So I said, "Mukesh, do you know why the frog leaps?" So he said, "No, I have no idea." I said, "Frog leaps because he's afraid of the predator. He's afraid of the enemy. And he jumps a few feet. And again jumps a few feet. That is reactive." I said, "Do you want to do that? Jump a few feet because you are afraid of your competitor? Or you want to pole vault? The size of the pole is the size of your aspiration." Alright? And he loved it. And we created a leadership program. It was called Beyonders. So out of a few lakh employees, we would pick up 20, 25, 30. And the target that was given to them was making impossible possible. All right, we'll give them stage targets, support them, take risks, and so on and so forth. And this idea of pole vaulting caught up. And did they pole vault? Yes, of course. If you see, for example, mobile data consumption, in February 2007, India was 156th among 231 nations. Jio came, and within 1 year, we did not leapfrog from 156 to 100. We pole vaulted to number 1, and we have been number 1. Now the most important part again, आपल्याकडे जुगाड म्हणतो आपण बघा. So you remember, there used to be something called missed call. What was missed call? You did not pay the telecom. That was bad, right? That was bad. That cultural shift actually with voice free, because 4 rupees per GB and voice free was what he offered. And that's how today they almost have 500,000 sort of customer. So that was a cultural shift, all right, that you can actually provide 4G LTE, a high technology, affordable access, that was what we used by actually sort of doing that. And therefore, if you look at exponential, I will give you a few examples of those exponential, just to sort of give you confidence that India is moving exponentially in some cases. I mentioned about mobile data consumption. You look at, for example, Prime Minister's Jan Dhan Yojana, and their policy, technology and system delivery got brought together. Jan Dhan Yojana as a policy, then Aadhaar technology, then ubiquitous mobile that came in the jam, and we have, so I mean, you can just see the kind of transformation that took place. In fact, in 2014, 1.4 crore accounts were opened in 1 week, and that became a Guinness Book of Record. That's what I mean by exponential. That's what I mean by pole vaulting, all right? And it was possible to sort of do that. But most importantly, again, I just don't look at the numbers. If you look at the accounts that the women had, they were 19%, and then they became 56%, threefold sort of increase. That was a significant, you will agree, sort of that. If you look at digital payments, of course, this is a well-known story. Now India is number 1, 46% of worldwide digital payment transactions are done by India, US and China put together. We would have never thought that was possible. And if you see the most unbanked country changing and completely transforming, that is what I mean by sustainable yet radical transformation. That's the pole vault that we actually were able to do. And UPI, for example, May 23, just 2 months ago, 9 billion transactions with $179 billion value. I mean, looks like a dream, looks impossible, but we did it. You look at the fourth, you will say you keep on talking about digital, mobile, etc. Talk about something else. All right, I will talk about something else. We talked about sustainability being very critical. Honorable Nitin Gadkariji also mentioned about that. Let us look at sustainability. You know, light emitting diodes, for example. You know, we moved from 0.2% market share to 88% within 6 years. World's fastest. You know how it was done? Actually, the importance of the LEDs, of course you know, but I'll repeat. If you look at a 7-watt LED, it will consume 50% of a 14-watt CFL, that is compact fluorescent lamp. And if you look at 7-watt LED, it will consume 9%, only 9% of a 60-watt incandescent lamp, which is very prevalent in India. So when you start using LED, you can see the carbon footprint just dramatically goes down. And with the Ujala scheme and creation of this EASL, we made sure that there was a sort of procurement innovation in terms of bulk procurement, and the prices of the 7-watt bulb fell from 310 rupees to 38 rupees, 10x. I love 10x, by the way. 10 times better, 10 times cheaper, something like that. It's lovely, sounds lovely, and creates a great effect. And 40 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions were basically saved. All right, so this is something that was possible. How? LED technology was not ours. But technological innovation is not the only innovation. There is a business model innovation, system innovation, workflow innovation, policy innovation, and it's a combination of it that works as we basically all knew, and that's what we actually did. We come back to new energy and what the enterprises are doing. And Nitin Gadkariji mentioned about that on the solar and so on and so forth. You know, I continue to be associated with Reliance as chairman of their New Energy Council. And Mukesh is betting big in terms of new energy. You know, solar, and then green hydrogen, and so on and so forth. And my New Energy Council has some of the world's best experts. And you know, Prakash, today we would not be here where we are, but for one man, Martin Glynn, from New South Wales. His pulse cell technology was the one who brought the efficiency from 14% to 28%. That is how solar actually dropped. So he's a member of the council. Mr. Wind, Mr. Carbon Capture, Bob Armstrong from MIT, or Jip Maitland, or Stasdel from Denmark, who is considered the Mr. Wind, and so on and so forth. And we are looking at the future, and once again, we are looking at a pole vault. We are not looking at incremental, we are looking at disruptive. So world's single largest solar electricity production will take place 100 gigawatt, not 20, 40, 100 gigawatt and a single location, by the way. And Mukesh, as usual, you know, there is a term called geofication. Like when we did 4 rupees per GB and voice free, speed, fantastic, scale, fantastic, and sustainability, again, fantastic. So one wants to do, he wants to do geofication here also. And you know the targets he has said, hold your breath, 111. What is 111? 1 kilogram of green hydrogen for $1 for 1 million people. And we are on a way to actually do that. Speed, scale, sustainability. So I think here, this has not happened, but this is on a way to happen. But I just thought I'll sort of give you this exciting news. And of course, something very close to your heart, where we are moving exponentially. You look at startups. Until 2016, we had 471 registered startups. 2023, 90,000. All right. So we are talking about this 7-year journey, 247 times more in terms of numbers, 15 times more funding, 9 times more investors, 7 times more incubators. But this is a reality check now. As we were discussing, Prakash, yesterday, actually, we were having a heady run. Until 2016-17, we had 1 unicorn per year. And 2021, we almost had 1 unicorn per week, 44, all right? And the good news there, and Amir, my son is here, he's my guru, by the way, when it comes to startups and so on and so forth. So I asked him to do an analysis, where do these unicorn comes from? So he heads this George and Next corporate accelerator, and his team actually did the analysis. And Prakash, the good news was, 50% of the unicorns, they just did not come from IITs and IIMs. They came from Tier 3 cities and Tier 2 cities and school dropouts. That is democratization. That is inclusion. We have the inclusive education system on that. That's what India needs to, basically. And of course, now the picture has changed. As we saw, 55 unicorns have made $5.9 billion loss recently. Baiju, for example, from $22 billion valuation, it has gone to 5.1. Swiggy has dropped by 50% and so on and so forth. So there are corrections, and rightfully, that are being made, and they should be made, basically. But this is cyclical. And you would see, once again, the rise. But these corrections were very important. And of course, the reasons are obvious. There's a global slowdown, there's a funding winter, then online, they had their honeymoon. Then once normalcy has come, whether there were edtechs and online delivery systems, etc., they're getting normalized. But there were internal, I think the most important, Amir tells me, that there were internal issues on corporate governance, on cash burn, on high customer acquisition costs, on high marketing expenses, bloated valuations, and so on and so forth. But we need now certain rationality. But look at from where we came, because I have to give both sides of the picture, not just give one side of the picture. Let me sort of move on to something like this, that we talk about lilies in the pond, right? They are exponentially growing, right? And India at 26, on the 26th day, if it has to become India at 30, it has to continue to grow, isn't it? Otherwise it will remain empty. Now for that, there are inhibitions that come in. Like those of you who have studied enzymes, for example, enzyme kinetics, the inhibitors and the reaction doesn't proceed, right? In life, that happens. So what are the inhibitions? And particularly with respect to sort of India. I think the first part is that you all looked at the 3 C's that bothered us, the COVID, the conflict, the climate, which will continue to bother us, and people now also talk about the 4 C, chips, because that would be another sort of challenge to come. And despite all this, and very frankly, to me, it looks VUCA is going to be the new normal. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And we have to be prepared. We can't have excuses. Oh my God, I didn't realize that. All right. In fact, I'm finding now in boards, I've been on several boards, as I said, one of the items that was never discussed was resilience. And now, the maximum attention goes on resilience. I have a separate lecture on resilience. I'll give you a link to that. It is called 10 Tenets of Resilience, which includes adaptability, agility, resilient thinking, autonomous innovation, sustainable organization, alignment, digitalization, platformization, scenario building, etc., etc. I won't have time to go through this, but each one is important. You just saw the demonstration of resilience, didn't you? When Nitin Gadkari ji had challenged and receiving this very quickly, what you did here, we could hear properly, right? That is agility. And that's very important. So how do we build that is very critical. In fact, if you look at Reliance, for example, for all 10, I can give examples of what it is. I'll just give you 2 or 3. For example, I talked about resilient thinking. You know, when Dhirubhai Ambani actually wanted to start his refinery, Jamnagar, he, as usual, went to the standard consultants, the McKinseys of this world, and they asked a standard question: for what specification would you like the refinery to be designed? He said, for all specification, right from a crude to the finest. They said, there is no refinery like this in the world. They said, but there is always a first step. Built, right? And they built a refinery which can handle, can you believe, 200 different types of crudes. So no matter what happens in the market, their margins are the highest. That is called resilient thinking. If you look at, for example, the way they rise, for example, Patalganga, you know, they had the plan that there was a flood, Motha Pura, and I remember the entire machinery was weight and so on. As usual, the consultants came and said it will take 3 months. Do you know, they did it in 3 weeks. How? They bought all the hair dryers that were available all around the country and used it. That was adaptability, that is agility. If you see, for example, their onboarding, you know, of customers. If you look at 50 million customers, television had taken 50 years, mobile took 12 years, YouTube took 4 years, Twitter took 2 years, Facebook took 3 years. Reliance Jio did it in 83 days. Alright, so they hold the record of going faster. But when you are moving like this at an exponential, suddenly an inhibition comes. And the inhibition came through Supreme Court. Because what they were doing was that they were using the Aadhaar based sign up, so as to say. So what used to take 3 days would take 10 minutes. You understand? That is how they were moving. And suddenly Supreme Court said, no, you can't use Aadhaar based. They said, thank you very much. And within 15 days, they created sort of an image-based authentication using a hyperverge AI platform, and the same thing continued within that such a short time. So I think the main point I'm trying to make is resilience is a key, because VUCA is the normal, the new normal, and how do you do that in your own sort of business? That is one. The second is that there is this talent, technology, and trust. I think before you go on a high exponential, how do you start? All right, and how do you get an opportunity, so as to say. I remember Bill Gates, once we had a dinner come discussion in Delhi. Anand Mahindra was there, and Arun Maira, myself, Nandan Nilekani, and all that. And Bill Gates told us a very interesting story, that he was giving the commencement lecture of Harvard University. And he declared himself as the most successful dropout from Harvard, which he was for others. That's what we should be doing. And there, I remember one of the awards went to somebody who had developed a kit for dengue, okay? Dr. Naveen Khanna from ICGE. What it would do is, the best practice was 2 days. He created next practice of 15 minutes. And he even knew at what stage your degree was, basically, all right? He had US patents, US FDA, everything. Nobody will buy it. Why? Because we are importing from Japan, from South Korea, from Australia, and from US. And then came pandemic. So we ran out of kits. Then we went to these countries with a begging bowl. 2 of them said, we can't supply a few lakhs within just 1 month. South Korea said, we will. And what happened was, by chance, they loaded these kits on a ship that did not come to India but went to Africa. So there were no kits. What do? Then we turned to Naveen Khanna. That his market share was close to 0%, today it's close to 80%. But if the ship had come at that time, it would be still 0%. Trust. That is very important. In fact, there is a very nice cartoon, where R.K. Lakshman, where there is a eye doctor, and he is examining the eye of a patient, and he finds a particle there. And he asks that patient, "Sir, there is a particle there, should I remove it?" "I'm asking because it's a foreign particle." I think that's where it and one of the greatest things here is that you just don't have venture capital, you have adventure capital. All right? And that is making a difference here. I think we in India, we have to learn that. The other part of it is the fact that, in startups, I don't have to tell you because I'm not going to give you a lecture on that, but since I'm talking from my personal experience, I must tell you something that is very, very important, not for you, but for the whole world. Amish here, his daughter Ishwari, when she was 5 or 6, she would sit next to me while I was reading the newspaper and or having a tea, and she would be fooling around. And then one day, I wanted to test her alphabets. So I took a piece of paper and wrote D. "What is this, beta?" She said D. Then I wrote several. And then I wrote Z. I said, "What is this, beta?" She said N. I said, "No, beta, it is Z." She said, "No, N." And she was right, and I was also right. So in life, when you argue, maybe that person is also right, we are also right. It depends upon the way you look at it. It had interesting fallout. What happened was that there was a dispute between Microsoft and an Indian company. And the Indian company CEO was actually jailed for 3 days in Arthur Road jail, basically. It came to a boil, and finally they said there should be a mediation. And finally, I think it was Narayan Murthy, myself, Anuradha, and out of that, finally, they settled for me. And we had the negotiation. I remember the Microsoft team coming, 6 people, the Indian team coming, my starting, and I simply narrated this story. I told this Indian company that Microsoft is a big multinational company, they have their own. So look at it from there. For the Indian company, I said, what are the limitations of this particular, look at that, Z and N. You will be both right. And then I left. By about 5 o'clock, I got a call that they are mediated and they're settled. Because each time they were breaking down, they remembered Z and N. So as to say. Even the Microsoft External Research Advisory Board, I used to come to Vermont every year for 5 years that I was there, and I found that finally that story had found a way into Redmond, by the way. And they used to call it Zen, by the way, Zen way of negotiation. So I think these are a few things, but because Amir was telling me how the founders implode because they are not able to see that. So when we talk about resilience, it comes in many, many different forms, and I think that's very important. I've also given in this book, so because somebody asked me, when you pole vault, how do you make sure that you don't break your back? So there is this chapter 3, which shows how, in a sense, there is an assured framework, affordable, scalable, sustainable, user-friendly, etc. the essential. And we have shown how companies have fallen when they don't follow the assured matrix. I started actually using it, by the way, when our Prime Minister created the Swachh Bharat mission. I was chairman of the standing committee to select technologies for drinking water and sanitation. So we started using that as filter, and then it has progressed quite a bit. Startups use it. There are t-shirts. Are you sure you are assured today? You get the point. I mean, and once assured, you are not always assured, and so on and so forth. There's a deep analysis that our Dina is there, TCS use it, and so on and so forth. So what I have talked to you about now so far is the exponential part of it and what will inhibit that exponential and what to do. Finally, I'd like to end in 10 minutes time. I just want to actually come to the end of my talk and just remind you about something that is very important. And that is, we talk about building new India. And when we talk about new India, we are looking at India at 75, let us say. And the like. What we are forgetting is Bharat at 75. 70% of India lives in rural villages. 1 out of 6 in urban cities lives in slums. And 1 out of 4 is below the poverty line. If that is not clear, then let me give a small example. You know, I don't know whether Mahesh is there and Purva is there, but Uday Gujar, a good friend of mine, brought his grandson to me during COVID, 8-year-old. His name is Ved. And Udayji said, I have a problem. We have a problem with this boy. So I said, what is the problem? He said, he knows everything. So I said, how can that be a problem? He's knowing everything. So I said, sit down. What is your favorite subject? All subjects. Very confident boy. But it was COVID time, you know, right in the middle. So I said, let's talk about biology. He said, fine. Test me out on anything. I said, what is the difference between bacteria and virus? Perfect answer. Then I raised the bar. I said, there is something called mutation. What is it? Perfect answer. Then I raised the bar. Abhijit, I said, spike protein, what is it? I thought he will not give the answer. He was almost there, 70-80%. Then we came to DNA. And I pulled out my iPad where there was a photograph of mine having breakfast with Watson. Watson is the Nobel laureate who found the double helical structure. You know, Watson and Crick. I said, who is he? He couldn't recognize because he was old. Then I said, Watson. Ah, Watson and Crick. Which year they got the award? And that 8-year boy tells me about the third scientist who should have got it and didn't get it. You know the X-ray diffraction pattern? 8-year-old boy. You know? And then I said, you seem to know so much about Nobel Prizes. Tell me, who got 2 Nobel Prizes? Immediate answer, Madame Curie. Including which years? I said, no, Linus Pauling also got that. He said, no. So the first one was for science, the second one was for peace. 8-year-old. And has not gone to school for a year. All right? Then I asked Udayji and Ved's father, hey, you are not scientists, how come you know so much? He said, we are doing Google. Google is his guru. Of course, I had to alert them that he is using the brain as a storage. He has to use it as an intelligent processor and how he will need Google. But that's a different matter. And amazingly, the same week, I read that in a village near Satara, a young girl, and I remember her name, Shraddha Paul, commits suicide. Why? Because she could not give the online exam. Why? Because she did not have online learning. Why? Because she did not have tablet or whatever smartphone. Why? Because her parents were poor. Ved belongs to India at 75. Shraddha, who is no more, belongs to Bharat at 75. So one of the major challenges we have to look at are inequalities. India is becoming more unequal, just as the world is becoming more unequal. And that is why, for that Shraddha, if something like this was available, it would have made a big difference. What is this? This is a $12 Jio Bharat. Can you imagine what it can do? This is internet connected. And the number of things it is able to do, you can't just imagine for what it offers for sort of $12. It can do payments by the way. through UPI, and so on and so forth. This is what I call affordable excellence. $12 is not just affordable, it is extremely affordable, but it is also excellence. Okay? India needs products like that. And it is then you will say, oh yes, people with big money, etc. can create these, and you require large capital investment, you require big volumes, then only you can bring down the cost, etc. etc. Of course they are right. But I'm very proud to say that Garje Marathi Inclusive Innovation Award, I have a foundation now, this is the 12th year of the award, and they are creating miracles. They are creating miracles in terms of the kind of affordable excellence. For example, I'm just like a magician, I'm pulling things out. But can you imagine this is a variable that pregnant women can wear, all right, which has been created by one Senthil Kumar. Why did he do that? Because in rural villages, the women have to travel by bus several kilometers to have their test done and so on and so forth and come back and so on. All right. So he created that for his sister. And today, I'm very proud to tell you, it is spreading. It just charges 1,000 rupees for 1,000 days for both child as well as the mother, 1 rupee per day. And there is a Harvard Business Review case study on what I'm holding here, affordable excellence of an incredible. Prakash said yesterday we have to look at Indian problems and solve them. This is solving an Indian problem of rural women who are pregnant. And then there are several examples like $1 breast cancer test, which is once again non-invasive and so on and so forth. I won't go into the details of that. But the point I'm trying to make is that there is this particular Bharat when we talk about India at 75, and we need to worry about them. That's the last one. I like to end my speech by giving 5 Mashelkar mantras. Because 81 is a long journey, you know. I've seen a lot. I've failed a lot also, and I've learned more by failing. So what are those 5 mantras? The first is you keep on knocking on the doors and they don't open. Create your own door. And in each case, I will give an example. I remember I went back into 1976. India was a very poor country at that time. I was trained as a rheologist. Non-nutrient fluid mechanics was my specialty, and I needed an equipment, Weisenberg rheogalvanometer. It will take me 2 years to get it. No, but foreign exchange, so DGTD clearance not manufactured in India. So that door was closed for me. I said, what is the equipment God has given me? This. So I shifted my field and went into mathematical modeling and simulation. You know, 1977 I started the work. 1982 I got India's highest science award for that work, you know, which is given for scientists below 45 years. That is Bhatnagar Prize. Okay? If I was waiting for that door to open, I would still be waiting. So the first lesson is that. The second is aspirations are your possibilities, keep them high. I remember taking over directorship of National Chemical Laboratory in 1989. This is 2 years before liberalization, before India opened up. All right? And I remember import substitution was the buzzword. Do anything up here, we'll copy. We're masters in copying. So anytime we did something which was ahead of the rest of the world, I went to Indian industry, they would say, but have they done it? Has Europe done it? Has US done it? Has Japan done it? If not, how can you do it? I said, what do I do? So my speech is there, you can read that. I said, India, the National Chemical Laboratory will be International Chemical Laboratory. Why should I be restricted by Indian markets? And this was 2 years before liberalization, when multinational was a bad word. I said, we will make multinationals our partners and we will license our technology to multinationals. We license our patents. Now, this was audacious. It was audacious because in 39 years we did not have a single US patent. And I was saying we license our patents. This 1989. 1991, we licensed 3 of our US patents on solid state polycondensation of polycarbonate, an idea that I picked up from my mathematical modeling and simulation, to General Electric, who were the world leaders with 40% market share. Can you imagine a laboratory? A smile and a clap doesn't cost anything, so when you want to give it anything, I will do it. So the basic issue is that the same people were doing reverse engineering and copy, given that challenge, raising their aspirations, and what impact did it have, I will tell you. When this partnership between GE, once we licensed those, actually they saw our capacity, and they started doubling up their investments in us year after year. We started getting other multinational talent like DuPont, Dow, and others, and so on and so forth. And then one day, Jack Welch said, if they are so good, why are we not there? And that is how the Jack Welch R&D Center came up. In fact, I was invited on the opening day. In fact, there is a small conference room named after me there in terms of and then today, we talk of India as a global R&D platform. In fact, in 1995, Dr. Manmohan Singh presiding over as a finance minister, I had given a talk on India's emergence as a global R&D. 4th March, 1995. And people, dangerous optimists, they sort of say impossible. It has happened actually. All right. 1,500 plus what they call as global capability center. I call them R&D center. They are there. And many of the companies are producing 1/3 of their IPs in Bangalore, in those institutions, etc. You can see the sort of a transformation that was possible. So that is the second aspiration. The third is a focus. I think that's extremely important. I always tell young people, you can do anything but not everything. And that lesson came to me in a very interesting way, by the way. I told you about our poor conditions. I remember I passed 7th standard. I went to a municipal school, studied in Marathi. Didn't make any difference. That's very important, by the way. And 7th standard to 8th standard secondary school, I had to go. My mother required 21 rupees. Uniform, shoes, this, that, and the other, textbooks, fees, and so on. It took us 21 days to get that 21 rupees. And finally, a housemaid was working in Chowpatty. It was her saving that she gave us, and that is how I. But it took so much time that I don't know how many of you are from Mumbai, but schools like Wilson High School, Aryan High School, Chikitsak High School, all the admissions were closed, and I went to poor school. But that poor school had rich teachers. You know, one of them was my science teacher. All right. You know, there is always a wow moment in each one of your lives. There must have been a wow moment. The moment came to me when one day he took me out into the sun. He had a convex lens in his hand. He had a piece of paper. He moved it up and down, and there was a brighter spot. And they said, this is the focal length. And they held it for some time, and the paper burned. When the paper burned, for some reason he turned to me. And he said, Mashelkar, like this, if you focus all your energies, you can burn anything, you can achieve anything. That did 2 things in my life. I said, if I focus, I can achieve anything. And also, science is so powerful, I decided to become scientist. That simple experiment turned my life. But as I went ahead, I saw more meaning in that. You know what was that meaning? Convex lens. Sun's rays are parallel. Okay? And what is the property of parallel lens? They never meet. What does convex lens do? It makes them meet. Alright? So when I became director of National Chemical Laboratory, I found inorganic chemistry division, organic chemistry division, polymer chemistry division. They wouldn't talk to each other. I said, nothing doing, one NCL. Alright? And we made structural changes. I became Director General of CSIR, 40 laboratories, 20,000 people, world's largest industrial R&D conglomerate, by the way. National Chemical Laboratory, Physical Laboratory, National Aeronautical. Nobody would talk to each other. In fact, they would fight, they would compete. I said, nothing doing. Team CSR, one CSR. Whereas 2 laboratories were not working with each other. When I left, there were 19 laboratories working together. And one of the finest days of my life, 11 May 1998, I remember we had 40 directors conference, and they signed something which was very special. They said, Team CSR, India matters to us, we want to matter to India more. All right? And 11 May, as you know, is celebrated as a technology day, because 3 important events happened, including our small aircraft and defense and the Pokhran too. All right? And I suggested to Atalji on the stage that we should call it a technology day, and spontaneously, he's a great man, you know, no proceeds, nothing, we declare 11 May sort of technology day. But I think the main point I'm trying to sort of mention to you is this idea of focus. I think if you ask me, we require a convex-lens leadership. Countries get divided because of race, religion, language, and so on. We can't do with concave-lens leadership, which takes them apart. And this is true for enterprises, this is true for societies, this is true for nations. That's the third Mashelkar mantra. The fourth is the sort of one where one has to live by the principles, the big purpose you talked about. All right. I remember, and even small thing matter, you know, as soon as you say Mashelkar, you remember turmeric patent and so on and so forth. But the way it happened was, again, a maze here. I remember a bird came, fell, we were sitting in director's bungalow, and my mother ran down and actually brought haldi paste and applied it to the wing, and the bird died. And I remember Amma was feeding him water and so on, and that was in my head up there. And then one day I saw this Times of India, which said that the wound healing properties of turmeric were patented, US patent. And in the evening I remember, because I think from here, I declared that I'm going to fight it. Now my challenge was, as a Director General of CSR, I had all the freedom in the world. But as Secretary to Government of India, all that freedom was taken away. So unless I had checked with the approval from the Minister of Science and Technology, would not have done it. But I said, forget about it, it's wrong, it has to be fought. आपण मराठीत म्हणतो ना, तत्वाचा प्रश्न आहे. Because that's simple. And then I became the chairman of World Intellectual Property Organization's Standing Committee on Information Technology. 176 nations are viewed with them. I said, knowledge generated in Harvard, Caltech, Princeton, Cambridge is knowledge, and knowledge generated by my ancestors in laboratories of life is not knowledge. That's not wrong. And we made the international pattern classification change, where traditional knowledge from no subgroups had 231 subgroups. It was accepted. We created a traditional knowledge digital library, basically, which has more than 3 crore pages. I went to US Patent Office, by the way. I showed to them that for that one turmeric wrong patent, there were 100 others. I took the Sanskrit sloka, the English translation, then they took me to the way they do the search. They said, when your turmeric patent came, turmeric wound healing powder, nothing came on the screen. कारण एक तर तुमच्या डोक्यात आहे किंवा तुमच्या पोत्यात आहे. So we created traditional knowledge digital library, and it has now become mandated for them to sort of to look at it. So all, no more turmeric pattern, no more basmati. Basmati also I want to remove. But the main point is that after हे गंमत असते आपल्याकडे, म्हणजे लगेच कौतुक होतं. तुम्हाला बरंच कौतुक झालं. आणि त्यावेळी विकू वज्रदंतीने माझा सत्कार केला. आणि त्यावेळी गंगाधर गाडगेंच्या हस्ते सत्कार झाला. आणि गंगाधर गाडगे म्हणाले, अरे तू तर सायंटिस्ट आहे. त्यांना माहिती होतं की पॅटर्न्स आर नॉट हँडल्ड बाय अस, इट्स अ डिपार्टमेंट इंडस्ट्री. सो वाय डिड यू डू दॅट? So I simply say, because I'm an Indian. It's as simple as that. As simple as that. Because we are so spoiled that if tap is not working, we say, what is the government doing? No. So the other Mashelkar principle has been that. And the last one, the fifth one, is that there is no limit to human imagination, no limit to human achievement, excepting the limit you put on yourself. I became fellow of Royal Society. FRS, in 363 years there have been only 3 engineering scientists from India who have become fellows of Royal Society, which is considered as something next to Nobel Prize, because scientists don't get it. And I'm happy as well as sorry to say that I'm the only Maharashtrian who has become fellow of Royal Society, signing in the book in which Newton has signed. So it's a high honor, and I called Professor Srina Rao, my mentor, who is my great guru, Bharat Ratna, as you know, and accepting Nobel Prize, he has got everything so far. One day he will get that. So I called him, and you know what was his response? Not bad. Then there were several other honors that came, and so on and so forth. Each time I would call him, he would say, not bad. So last one I got upset. I said, sir, what do I have to do to impress you? You know what he told me? And I want to leave that as a message for you. He said, he calls me Ramesh. My name is Raghunath Mashelkar, but people call me Ramesh. Ramesh, you are climbing on a ladder of excellence, which has no limit, excepting the limit that you put on yourself. What does it mean? No matter what you achieve in life, you have to say, my best is yet to come. Wow. Then I say that whether you are 18, 28, 88, every day in the morning we have to get up and say, my best is yet to come. Alright? I want to end by saying that India at 100 is our dream, but I explained to you the Bharat at 75. So India at 100 can't be what it is if Bharat at 75 remains what it is. But it is predicted that India at 100 will have 21% of world's workforce, 20% of world's middle class. You know, India used to be described as a poor country with poor people. I used to say India is a rich country with poor people. This richness is our culture, our heritage, our values that Nitinji was